game.
What's going on, and welcome to Pro Football Today, a post-game show. My name is Tom Vecchio. I'll be here until midnight, bringing you a recap of this game and then looking forward to the Sunday slate. Rams come away with the win, 12-6. What a game we had here. Just because there was a lack of scoring doesn't mean players weren't hitting overs on their props. We have a good amount to get to. This is, a couple quick notes right from the top. Rams win. So they cover the 3.5 or 3, wherever you got it. Money line comes through. The under was the play. 49.5 where the game was sitting at was way too high for a divisional game on a short week. I spoke about this on the pregame show with Adam Coughlin and Dave Sherapan, saying we will see the Rams win and the under hit. With the props, that's a different story. We'll get there, don't worry. But massive game for the Rams, their divisional chances, their playoff chances, whatever it might be. And at this point for the 49ers, their season is all but done. They have a sub 1% chance to make the playoffs. It is over for them. Let's get to some of the players. Let's start off with the Rams, the winning side of things. Stafford, 16 of 27, 160 in the air, no passing touchdowns, no interceptions. He hits the under across the board. Unders on everything. Kyren Williams was awesome. I know today is the start of the fantasy playoffs, and this was a huge game with a lot of important players for people. Kyren Williams was good. 29 carries, 108. He goes over everything. He goes over the carries. He goes over the yards. If you altered him to 90-plus or 100-plus, he hits that. No touchdowns, of course, from anyone in this game, so the lack of scoring is notable. Blake Corum, the 3 carries for the 5 yards. I was looking, as I said at halftime, I was looking for Corum to get over 3.5, 4.5 carries. The line was locked the entire time when they were moving on that drive. For the receiving, Puka Nacua, that big 51-yard catch kind of saves his day, saves his production overall. He hits 97 yards, so he hits the over on his. The 7 receptions, which means he hits the under on 7.5 receptions, but still 7 of 97 is a very, very solid line for Puka Nacua. And again, if you are a fantasy manager, that is a spot that you like to see. After that, it's a bunch of nothing. All right, Cooper Kupp ends with 3 targets, 0 catches, obviously 0 yards, a complete donut from him. Colby Parkinson, a couple catches at the end there, 2 for 21. Hunter Long, 2 of 17. And Blake Corum out of the backfield with 2 of 15. So really, Kyren Williams and Puka Nacua are the ones that have big games. And this is exactly what I said on the pregame show when I was talking to Adam and Dave. And I said, when it comes to the Rams, on a week-to-week basis, I expect 2 of Kyren Williams, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp, 2 of the 3 to have big games. That is exactly what we got tonight. 2 of the 3 had big games. And, of course, Cooper Kupp, the one that I was personally the highest on, does absolutely nothing. Let's get to the 49ers side of things. Brock Purdy, 14 of 31 for 142, no touchdowns, and the interception we saw late at the game. I did talk about Brock Purdy going over 30.5 passing attempts, which he hit right there on the last drive with 18 seconds left. So over on 30.5 attempts, he hits 31. Garendo, obviously the story of the day for the 49ers. Will he start? Won't he start? The short week. He didn't practice Monday, Tuesday. 16 carries for 57 yards. He hits the under on his yards, which was sitting at 60 or 61.5. Deebo Samuel coming in the backfield, the 2 carries for the 3 yards. Also Deebo in the receiving game, 3 catches for 16 yards. Really the only good player for the 49ers was George Kittle with 4 catches for 61 yards. Depending on where you got his line, if it was earlier in the week sitting at 58, 59, whatever it might have been, that hits the over. But some lines were sitting at 61, 62 today, which means he does hit the under. His receiving total, or I should say reception total, was also sitting at 4.5, and he ends with 4. Juwan Jennings, interestingly enough, he had only 2 catches for 31 yards, but he did lead the team with 9 targets, and that's kind of the spot we've seen Juwan Jennings over the past few weeks. And while, again, the 49ers season is all but over, I think Juwan Jennings will still be a source of value, especially when it comes to yards on a week-in and week-out basis. And today is partially due to the weather, why we saw the lack of production, but one of my favorite bets for Juwan Jennings will still be the longest reception prop even as we end out the season for the 49ers, again, with their season all but done. So, again, 12-6 final, Rams win, money line hits, and of course the under was the play the entire time. 49 or 48.5, whatever it was simply way too high for a divisional game on a short week, especially with one side, the 49ers, that is not being fully healthy. Yes, they got players back on defense, but Garendo is banged up coming in today. Trent Williams was not playing today yet again. It has been a long injury-filled season for the 49ers. And again, this is massive for the Rams and not only their divisional odds, as we spoke to during the Back to the Futures segment on the pregame show. Vinny, if we have the graphic for the NFC West divisional odds, huge game now coming up for the Sunday night game between the Seahawks and the Packers. If you are a Rams backer to make the playoffs, to win the division, whatever it might be, you are rooting hard for the Packers on Sunday night. The line is still sitting at 3, I believe. And the Rams are going to be in a spot where they have potential to win the division in the final few weeks of the season. So we got a lot more to get to. We're coming up against a break right now. We'll continue to break down, recap this game generally, but move on to Sunday slate, which is absolutely awesome. We have a ton of massively important games. I'm already in on some props for some games that have stuff posted. Stay tuned. Pro Football Today post-game show with myself, Tom Vecchio, bringing you up till midnight, recapping this game, moving forward to Sunday's slate. Stay tuned.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
What's going on, and welcome to Pro Football Today post-game show. My name is Tom Vecchio, coming off of Thursday Night Football. Rams coming away with the win at 12-6, all field goals, no touchdowns in this game. 49ers season is all but done at this point. The Rams keep their playoff hopes alive, and the important game on Sunday night for the Rams will be that Seahawks hosting the Packers matchup. And if you are, again, as I said, coming up on the, prior to the break, if you are a Rams backer to win the division, to make the playoffs, whatever it might be, you are rooting hard for the Packers. You want the Seahawks to pick up as many losses as possible. It was a 12-6 game. There's not much more we need to say about that. Let's move on to the Sunday slate. There's a mix of games that are, I think, absolutely phenomenal, that have a ton of playoff implications, and multiple of the games are like tied together where one game impacts the other, et cetera, et cetera. Let's at least start with one of the larger spreads that we've seen this year is the Rams. The Rams just won. The Ravens, 16.5-point favorites on the road versus the Giants. This line was, I believe it was 13.5 or 14 when I did the recap on Monday night, and it has now been steamed up to 16.5. You got to think, if this was a home game, add another 1.5 or 2 in favor of the Ravens, we would be looking at a nearly 20-point total. There is absolutely no reason the Ravens should not come out and absolutely steamroll the Giants. The Giants are a complete mess. They're coming off of this. The Ravens are coming off of a couple of bad games, right? 3 weeks ago, they lost to the Steelers. They lose to the Eagles last week. They need to get the engine going again. And that means them come out and put up 30, 35 points, holding the Giants to, I'm going to say, sub 10 points. So there's no player props posted. However, Giants team total is sitting at 13.5. It is juiced to the under, sitting at minus 122. And that's the spot ultimately I would look to go. There are some reports that Drew Lock is not going to be good to go for the Giants, and they're going back to Tommy DeVito. I have no faith in the Giants offense to do absolutely anything. It's about the Rams, and frankly, I think the 16.5 is viable to bet. I know a lot of people don't like betting bigger spreads in the NFL. The Giants are a complete mess. Now, for the Commanders and the Saints, 7.5-point spread in favor of the road Commanders. You would say this spread seems a little bit big at first glance. We have to remember Derek Carr is out, and he's going to apparently be out for multiple weeks. He's got the hand, the fracture, whatever it is. Jake Haener is apparently set to start for the Saints. It is not going to be good for New Orleans. Now, what does this mean? The receiving core we already know is completely banged up. Taysom Hill is done for the year. Chris Olave, there are some reports that he may be able to come back later in the season. Rashid Shaheed is done. If there's any path to the Saints winning, it means Alvin Kamara has an absolutely awesome game. That's really what it comes down to. He is their best player on offense. He would legitimately need to see a minimum of 20 total touches, hopefully by carries, and then a little bit of work in the passing game. You have to think, what do the Saints need to do in order to, I don't want to even say win this game, but to keep it close, keep it competitive, because with the Commanders and Jaden Daniels on the other side, like they cannot turn this game into a shootout. Like, this game is a 43 over-under for a reason. The Saints cannot turn this game into a shootout. So what does that mean? You don't want Jake Haener throwing the ball 35 times. That just spells disaster for the Saints. So Kamara has to see the ball on the ground, and they have to control the clock. They have to keep the ball away from Jaden Daniels, because if Jaden Daniels is allowed to run free, if they just keep trading scores, everyone's going to be siding with the Commanders. That's not what the Saints want to do. Again, their new head coach is their former special teams coordinator. He wants to control the game, keep things in control as much as possible. And that does not mean Haener throwing the ball 35 times. So Kamara props, once they're posted, is where I'll be looking. He needs to see 20-plus total touches, most of them coming on the ground. That's where I'll be looking. Again, no props posted as of right now. For the Bengals and the Titans up next, we briefly touched on this game during the pregame show. Dave mentioned it, that the Bengals come out and they absolutely roll over the Titans, as we've seen time and time again. The 4.5 points in favor of the Bengals are juiced a little bit. It's sitting at minus 120, 46.5 over under, minus 115 on the over. And again, I think they just continue to roll on offense, the Bengals this is, and they have been absolutely awesome on offense. And realistically, Burrow should be up there in the MVP conversation if it wasn't for their record as a team, if it wasn't for them having just an absolutely terrible defense. I have been very adamant about going to Joe Burrow passing attempts when the line has been sitting at 35 or 36.5. It's sitting at 37.5 now, and it's juiced minus 142 the under. And this is, I'm assuming, largely due to the potential game script that this gets, where Burrow will have his 30-plus passing attempts pushing towards the mid-30s, but at a certain point, what are we expecting from the Titans offense overall? And if I was expecting Burrow to go over that 37.5, which does have plus money at plus 108 on the over, you might at that point want to be looking at a Titans team total over, because if the Titans are getting out and scoring, we know we're going to be seeing plenty of production from Burrow. So Titans team total is sitting at 20.5 with -112 on the under, -108 on the over. Again, if you want to build a little bit of correlation and you think Burrow is going to continue to get out there and sling it, Titans team total might be a good way to add in some correlation to that. Next up, let's go to Dolphins at Texans. Huge game for the AFC playoff odds. 46.5 over under. Texans at home, as you would assume, favored by 2.5 points. It is juiced a little bit at -120. The Dolphins are still mathematically alive. They're sitting in the 9th seed right now. If you are a Dolphins backer, you want to see the Colts lose. The Colts are playing the Broncos. Both of those teams are ahead of the Dolphins, but specifically you would want to see the Colts lose so you could leapfrog them. Again, this is if you are a Dolphins backer. There are some props posted for this game, most notably touchdown props. Joe Mixon, -250 to score a touchdown is unbelievable. Unbelievable for that. I wouldn't be looking there. I'd be looking to a passing prop, and frankly, I like Tua. I like Tua at over 265.5. I think they want to get out there and sling the ball. The Texans defense has not been good this season. I think they want to come out and put a statement. I like the Dolphins with the points at +2.5, and I like some Tua props this week. We have a lot more to get to run through the rest of the games. Remember, there's no more buys, so we have a full slate of games, a doubleheader on Monday. Stay tuned here. Pro Football Today post-game show with myself, Tom Vecchio. We'll run through the rest of the games on the Sunday slate.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
What's going on, and welcome to Pro Football Today, a post-game show. Myself, Tom Vecchio, bringing you up until midnight. Just came off of a very slow Thursday night game. Rams coming away with the win at 12-6. No touchdowns, was sitting up at about 200-1, 230-1, whatever it might have been. Congrats if you're on that. We did see some, some players hit some overs on props. Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, mainly being them, George Kittle. But we are on to the Sunday slate, breaking things down. We have a ton of massively important games when it comes to the playoff picture. Let's jump to the Chiefs visiting the Cleveland Browns. We have a 43.5 over-under, a 4.5 point spread in favor of the Chiefs. And the first bet that I made for this game is Travis Kelce to score touchdown, sitting at plus 140 for a couple of weeks now. I've been doing shows. It was dating back to that Black Friday game versus the Raiders, where I first mentioned that Travis Kelce is one touchdown away from breaking the Chiefs' all-time touchdown record. What better time to do it back at home, where he's from Cleveland Heights? He's back in Cleveland. He's now gone 4 straight games without a touchdown. I know he started off the year super slow, but let's get Travis Kelce a touchdown at plus 140. Cleveland Heights at Cleveland Browns. I will take that Travis Kelce touchdown at plus 140. Now, what has been the story with the Chiefs this season? They win games, but they don't cover, right? They win games, but they don't cover. 12-1 straight up, 4-8-1 against the spread. They are on a 7-game against the spread losing streak. We saw it on Sunday night. A doink field goal to win it. They won the game, but they don't cover. Everyone says, oh, the Chiefs don't cover. All that says is that there's value on betting on the other team. The Browns at plus 4.5. And listen, if you don't want to bet on the Browns, I understand that. Their season is over. You don't want to lay with the Chiefs just because they don't cover minus 4.5, and you're not going to lay minus 215 on the money line for the Chiefs. But if the Browns get out and score and the line drops to 2.5, you should be willing to take the Chiefs at that point, because they are winning games, but they're not covering. They're not covering their pregame number. They're covering sometimes in-game number. So when we saw the Chargers get out to a lead on Sunday night, the Chiefs at one point were minus 1.5. So if you're locked in on Sunday, in-game betting is the best spot to be targeting the Chiefs. If you think they're going to win the game and they get to around even money on the money line, that's where we go for the Chiefs. Let's move on to the Colts and the Broncos. This is an actual huge game when it comes to the AFC playoff picture. Colts are sitting at 8th. They're 6-7. The Broncos are at home in this matchup, and they're sitting in the 7th seed at 8-5. This is a huge spot for the Broncos to potentially pick up a win and help secure their odds. This game is a 44.5 over-under. It is a 3.5 point spread in favor of the Broncos. It is juiced at minus 122 for the Broncos. I got to say, I kind of like the Colts in this one. You're getting plus 100 for the Colts. If you like them now, I would say grab the 3.5 now before it potentially moves to 3. I think that would be a spot to go. However, in this game, although I do like the Colts, I have bet on Anthony Richardson under 28.5 passing attempts. It's sitting at minus 120. Ultimately, this is a spot that I see somewhat similar to the Saints, where Bo Nix and that offense, they are moving, and Bo Nix has looked significantly better, especially in the past few weeks, than he did at the beginning portion of the season. I don't think the Colts want to turn this into a shootout versus the Broncos, because ultimately I think the Broncos would prevail pretty easily in that circumstance. So what does that mean for the Colts? And kind of their plan all season is, let's get Jonathan Taylor involved. Let's get Jonathan Taylor involved early and often. Let's get him on the ground moving. Let's control the clock, because if Richardson needs to throw the ball 30, 35 times, whatever it might be, that's when they expose themselves to the most risk, just because he is turnover prone. So in order to mitigate that risk, they need to have Richardson have a controlled offense, and it's not throwing the ball 35 times. It's running the ball with Taylor, running the ball with Richardson. They take the shots when they need to in the passing game. So give me the Colts at plus 3.5, Anthony Richardson under 28.5 passing attempts. Next up, let's go to the Cowboys-Panthers. Cowboys-Panthers, Jets-Jags, these are 2 bad games. Let's just call it what it is. Other games, we have playoff-bound teams. Some of them we have 2 teams, but Cowboys at the Panthers, a 2.5 point spread in favor of the Panthers. The Panthers are favorites with a 42.5 over-under. The over is juiced at minus 120. I got to say, the Panthers, as everyone has noted, and I will continue to say, the Panthers are playing better, right? They are playing better. They cover 10.5 points against the Chiefs 3 weeks ago and take them to a last-second field goal. They cover against the Bucs. I believe that line was 6.5, and take the Bucs to overtime and lose on a field goal. Chuba Hubbard had a ball that he fumbled. They could have won the game. Ultimately, they still cover. And then they cover as 13.5 or 14-point underdogs against the Eagles. The Panthers, granted, they've been getting points most of the time. They are cover machines. So do I want to lay 2.5 points with the Panthers? No. Do I think they could be live to win this game? Yes. And if so, it probably means that Bryce Young, who has been so much better in recent weeks compared to where he was at the beginning portion of the season, it probably means that Bryce Young is having a big game. So give me Bryce Young over 203 pass.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
What's going on, and welcome back to Pro Football Today. Post-game show, my name is Tom Vecchio, bringing you up until midnight, coming off the Thursday night game. Super exciting if you had the under. Like I said, also had the Rams 12-6 victory. We are on to the Sunday slate, breaking things down. Let's go to Jets at Jags, a 3.5-point spread in favor of the road Jets. It is a 40.5 over-under, which is certainly very light. We know that Mac Jones is at the helm for the Jags. We know that Breece Hall continues to not practice for the Jets. I'm slightly intrigued by Braylon Allen to score a touchdown, which is now plus 145. Earlier in the day, I saw it at plus 150, so maybe there's some indication that Breece Hall won't actually play for the second straight week, and Braylon Allen will continue to be involved. I know I really, really don't want to lay 3.5 points with the Jets. And what it comes down to is, will I want to wait for the Jets to be at 3? Sure. Do I have to pick this game due to a pick'em pool? We pick every game every week. Of course, as many people out there do the same thing. I want the Jets at 3. Of course, I don't want them at 3.5. It is what it is. I think I'll be looking to Brian Thomas Jr., of course, the rookie wide receiver for the Jags, to continue to be involved, especially if they're playing from behind. I don't really have a whole lot of interest in going to Devontae Adams or Garrett Wilson. I think Braylon Allen is the answer in the backfield for the Jets. Let's move on to the Cardinals hosting the New England Patriots. The Cards are 6.5-point home favorites, which is just way, way too much. It was a 46.5 over-under. The Cards have lost 3 straight games. Their season hangs on a thread right now. And if they want to have any shot at making the playoffs, and even getting close, as they're in the 10th seed right now, not only do they need help, they have to win this game. So I think ultimately the best play is to try and find some middles in this, because I think the Cardinals will win. They are the better team compared to the Pats, but man, laying 6.5 is a bit heavy for me. So I want to take the Cardinals live, hopefully at a 3 2.5. Hopefully the Pats can absolutely get out and score early. That would be ideal. I think the Cardinals win, but they don't cover. That's my ultimate takeaway for this game. But I think that means that Kyler Murray has to get things going in the air. Over 222.5 passing yards is also the spot that I'll be looking for Kyler Murray. Again, on this Sunday slate, it's very easy to overlook some of these games, like a Cowboys-Panthers, like a Jets-Jags, games that have very clear spots where there's zero playoff implication, and you can throw the Pats and the Cardinals into that mix. A game that is on the complete opposite side of that. The Buccaneers at the Chargers is in a massively important game for both conferences, divisions, whatever you want to call it. A 3-point spread in favor of the Chargers, a 45.5 over-under. Why is this game important? The Bucs holding down the NFC South right now at 7-6. They are on the road. This is not an easy matchup for them by any means. Theoretically, if they were to lose this, they would then go to 7-7. As I mentioned on the pregame show briefly, the Falcons are on the road on Monday night, and they are playing the Raiders. I think we'd all agree that the Falcons, in the grand scheme of things, are an average team, but they are better than the Raiders. So if the Falcons were to win, they would be 7-7. And we would also see the Bucs at 7-7. And we know that the Falcons do not have the tiebreaker because the Falcons have the tiebreaker because they've already beaten the Bucs twice. So this is a massively, massively important game for the Bucs because if they can sneak away with that win, they would then have that spot over the Falcons if the Falcons were to win as well. So I really do like taking the points for the Bucs in this one at +3. And this is a little bit juiced at -118. We have to deal with that again. Shop for the best lines available. If you can find the Bucs at +3 and you can get them at -110, that's of course the spot that I prefer. I'm just looking on the FanDuel Sportsbook right now. But all things considered, this is an extremely important game for the Bucs because they will lose that tiebreaker to the Falcons. And I think we'd all assume that the Falcons will win that game versus the Raiders, considering just how bad the Raiders are overall. So give me the Bucs. Give me the under 45.5. We've seen a ton of Chargers games played towards the under this season. Let's move on to what could be the two games of the entire weekend. And we'll start on this side of the break. We have a break coming up in a few minutes, and I will carry this over to the next segment. Steelers, Eagles, Bills, Lions, huge games for multiple reasons. And I love the fact that they are inter-conference games because they impact so much. Eagles, 5.5-point home favorites, 42.5 over-under, going up against the Steelers. As I mentioned this on Monday night, I like the Steelers at +5.5, which is where I took them earlier in the week. The Eagles are sitting on, cruising into this matchup on a 9-game winning streak. They are 11-2. The Lions are 12-1. And as I mentioned, the Bills-Lions matchup is up next. And I want to put these games together in terms of talking about them. This is a losable matchup for the Lions. It is. The Bills are a great team. The Bills are coming off of a loss. The Lions are a great team. I think this is a Super Bowl preview. But if the Lions were to lose, which I don't think it would shock anyone if the Lions were to lose to the Bills. This is a coin flip game essentially at a 2.5-point spread. The Lions would then fall to 12-2, and if the Eagles were able to win, they would improve to 12-2. Now we have a tie atop the NFC for the number 1 seed. This is why these two games that are happening simultaneously at 4:25 window on Sunday are so important. Because the Eagles, obviously, were fighting for the number 1 seed. The Lions want to secure that number 1 seed. And now we flip to the Steelers side of things. The Steelers have a very tough road over the next few weeks. A very tough road. While they are holding down the division right now in terms of the AFC North, the Ravens have a winnable game against the Giants. We all know that. And then the Ravens play the Steelers the following week. Now, the Steelers did win that first matchup, so they have the head-to-head victory. But the Ravens, if they get going on offense, I think we'd all agree that the Ravens would be the better team compared to the Steelers. So then the Ravens pick up another win, and now we are tied back atop the AFC North. Meanwhile, the Steelers have to end the season with the Chiefs and the Bengals. So I don't want to say that the Steelers' season is on the line in this week, considering what they have, coming at the end of the tunnel in the next few weeks. But man, the Steelers have to keep this game under control. And that means I will take the points with the Steelers. I will take the under on this game. And stopping Saquon on the ground has to be the number one priority for the Steelers. So while this game is an in-state matchup, there's a lot of just hype around that, whatever it might be, the keystone matchup between these teams. It impacts so much. So if you are a Ravens backer and you have the Ravens to win the division, which are currently, the Ravens are plus 175 to win the division. And frankly, this is the first time I'm looking at the division odds, at least for the AFC North. I kind of love the Ravens. If they win, Steelers lose this week, I think that is very reasonable. The Steelers lose, or any team losing on the road to the Eagles, wouldn't be a surprise. A team beating the Giants also would not be a surprise. The Ravens will not be plus 175 come Sunday at 11:40 when we are doing the Sunday night recap, which I will be on. We will be going through this exact scenario, and I guarantee the Ravens, if they win and the Steelers lose, obviously both things have to happen, the Ravens will not be plus 175. And then when they play the following week, and if the Ravens were to win, the Ravens would immediately jump towards being the favorite to win the AFC North. Absolutely. Considering, again, the road that the Steelers have to close out the season. They play the Eagles this week, the Ravens the following week, then the Chiefs, and then the Bengals. And at that point, the Bengals, they very may well be eliminated from the playoffs at that point. There's absolutely no doubt about that could happen. But it's a divisional matchup, and we could still see a spot where Burrow and Chase are hunting to be the league leaders in passing yards and receiving yards, respectively, which is something that they may want to reach for. And, of course, why not play spoiler a little bit against your division opponent? So Ravens at plus 175 might be one of the best futures moving forward for the rest of the season. We got a couple more segments coming up here on Pro Football Today. Post-game show, myself, Tom Vecchio, will be wrapping things up, bringing you guys until midnight. Stay tuned. Other side of this break, we're coming up with it right now.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
What's going on? Welcome to Pro Football Today. Post-game show, myself, Tom Vecchio, bringing you up until midnight for the recap of Thursday Night Football. Obviously, a 12-6 victory in favor of the Rams over the 49ers. We are running through the Sunday slate. Let's jump back to the Steelers taking the Eagles and the Bills taking on the Lions. I kind of talked about it from a high-level perspective, what we should be expecting from the divisions. But let's actually get into the games. Again, a 42.5 over-under for Steelers, Eagles. Eagles are 5.5-point home favorites. There are some props posted For this one, I went to A.J. Brown to score a touchdown at plus 150. It's down to plus 145. Let's roll with the narrative, right? Let's roll with we can have some fun with this. And we could circle back on some of the fun, but ultimately, A.J. Brown is the top target in terms of target share, in terms of red zone target share on the Eagles. There are some reports throughout the week and what he said post-game last week that they need to pass the ball more. He's not happy with the passing offense, et cetera, et cetera. Ultimately, A.J. Brown is the number one option on the Eagles. And when we're getting that option at plus 150, that's a spot I will continuously look to buy in. So that's where I'm going on this. Do we want to be going to Saquon? Me personally, I don't, just because the line is so high, sitting at 99.5 yards. I'm never going to be betting those super, super high lines. I kind of like maybe Barkley in the passing game at 13.5. Grant Calcaterra at 22.5. We know he's stepping into a bigger role because Dallas Goedert is on IR. That's my initial spot that I would be looking. Frankly, I think that we can take the under on passing attempts for Jalen Hurts at 25.5. If you want to go over on Russell Wilson, you expect him to be playing from behind at 30.5. That's certainly a route to go. And we also have to remember that George Pickens is listed as doubtful for this game, dealing with a hamstring injury. He's not expected to play. Let's move on to Buffalo taking on the Detroit Lions. This also has game of the year potential, a 54.5 over-under, a 2.5-point spread in favor of the home Lions. All they do is win and cover at home. We have props across the board on this, at least from the Lions side of things, I should say. We're still waiting on some props for the receivers for Buffalo because their rookie Keon Coleman, wide receiver, and Dalton Kincaid have missed the last few games. What is expected for them if they're going to play? That is still up in the air. Goff is sitting at 255. Josh Allen is sitting at 254 when it comes to the passing. Obviously, Josh Allen coming off a game where he played Superman against the Rams, going for 1,000,000 yards and touchdowns. Much of that could be the same this week. If we're expecting a 54.5 over-under, what is the route to getting to 54.5? It's not James Cook on the ground going for 140 yards. It's Josh Allen passing the ball. Josh Allen not only passing the ball over 254.5, but it's Josh Allen passing the ball 275. Let's alt him up. Let's got Josh Allen for 300 plus. And frankly, I think alting both quarterbacks for both plus 275 plus yards for both of them, not a bad little SGP at plus 338. That's what we're expecting. Right, that's a way to boost the odds of what we are expecting for a game that has a 54.5 over-under. So I certainly like mixing in those types of options where we're expecting 55 points, let's call it 60-some-odd points if you're betting on the over. That's what you're expecting it to hit. We want to be getting the yards. And now, granted, the Lions' run game will certainly play a part in this. Absolutely. And we can expect a lot more from the Lions on the ground than we can from the Bills. I think going to James Cook is certainly fine on the ground. His rushing prop is a bit lower than we've seen recently. It's only sitting at 51.5, but the duo of Gibbs and Montgomery up at 68 and 55.5 respectively, that's where we can see a good bit of production. So I say this in terms of this little SGP, talking about both quarterbacks going for 275 plus yards. If there were to be one quarterback to fall short, I would expect it to be Jared Goff just because they have the consistency in the run game. But I do think that there's a reasonable route that both quarterbacks pretty comfortably go for 275 plus yards. And again, we'd be getting this at plus 338. So Bills-Lions, absolutely awesome game just from a viewing experience, regardless of playoff implications, just from the prop perspective, fantasy perspective. This is the game that we want to be watching. And then Steelers-Eagles is absolutely awesome as well. Let's move on to Packers-Seahawks, which we'll, of course, touch on the other side of this break. Seahawks at plus 2.5. I mentioned this on the pregame show that I have the Seahawks at plus 3. It is what it is. Lines change throughout the week. I will certainly take them at plus 3. Huge game for the Packers. They're coming off a loss. Huge game for the Seahawks because the Rams won. This game also has high-level implications when it comes to the NFC playoff picture overall. We can certainly break that down on the other side of this break. I immediately, of course, like I said, Seahawks at plus 3. and leaning on the under 46.5. There's just too much at stake at this game to see these teams get out and flying on offense. We also need an update on Kenneth Walker, who again did not practice today or was limited in practice. I will double check that, what Adam Schefter tweeted earlier. But if he is not good to go, it'll be again Zach Charbonnet seeing the majority of the role in the backfield for the Seahawks. So outside of that, what other props will we have? We have no other props posted. It's just passing props. And frankly, 252.5 for Geno Smith, the first time that I'm seeing this, 234.5 for Jordan Love. Man, the Geno Smith one seems a touch high at 252.5. I think I would lean on the under on Geno, but ultimately I want the Kenneth Walker news, right? That's what we want for this. That's what will dictate a lot of the game. It's not to say that Zach Charbonnet is not good, because he was awesome last week going up against the Cardinals. So that is one thing to know. If I'm checking Schefter's tweets, I would have to double check the actual injury report from the Seahawks specifically to see what we get from that. Okay, for a second straight day today, Seahawks, Kenneth Walker did not practice due to his calf injury. So he's not practicing as of Thursday. Tomorrow's injury report on Friday will be absolutely crucial. If he's not practicing or is limited in practice, I would assume he's going to be listed as questionable or doubtful and would lean towards Zach Charbonnet playing. And I think that has to be a Charbonnet game on the ground. Under on Geno Smith passing, sitting up at 252.5 just seems a touch too high. And under on the game overall at 46.5, I think that's the route we want to be going. We do not want to see I do not expect these teams to get out and fly on offense given the stakes of this game. Packers absolutely do not want to be on a multi-game losing streak, and the Seahawks cannot fall after just having seen the Rams win. So under on the game, Seahawks +3, under on Geno Smith passing. Stay tuned. One more segment coming up. We're coming up against a break right now. Stay tuned. Pro Football Today post-game show with myself, Tom Vecchio. We'll touch on the 2 Monday night games as we have a doubleheader coming up this week.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
What's going on, and welcome to Pro Football Today post-game show. My name is Tom Vecchio. Last segment here, let's run through the two Monday night games. We got a doubleheader of one of the final weeks of the season. Huge game for the Falcons, big game for the Vikings as well. Let's hit the Vikings. Hosting the Bears is a 6.5 or 7-point spread, depending on where you are finding those lines. It is 6.5 minus 115 on DK. And then we see it sitting at 7 points, minus 102 on FanDuel. So, of course, shop for the best lines available. 6.5 is obviously better than 7. You think if they're covering 6.5, they'll, of course, be covering the 7 as well. 44.5 over under. There's a lot going on when it comes to this game. The Ravens, the Vikings, you would like to see them just come away with a very straightforward win. The Bears have been just beyond inconsistent on offense. And they mentioned on the Thursday night broadcast for the Bears overall. Tommy, do you have the graphic for this game? We have Vikings Bears for this one. 6.5 point spread or 7 point spread. Bears are doing nothing on offense. The point being, so whether it's 6.5 or whether it's 7 point spread, I think we can trust the Vikings in this one because the Bears do absolutely nothing. And frankly, what are we going to be talking about? We're talking about Caleb Williams come Monday night. We'll be talking about Caleb Williams interception props. They're going to be playing from behind. He has to throw the ball. I got to say, once these props are posted, once these lines are posted, Vikings defensive touchdown, right? And a Vikings defensive touchdown on DK, it's posted at plus 475. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, plus 475, that seems like a big number. For a defensive touchdown, that's not a good number at plus 475. So I'm going to wait to see where odds are posted on FanDuel. We know that the Vikings are awesome at taking the ball away this season. The Bears have been playing from behind. Caleb Williams will be throwing an interception, and a Vikings defensive touchdown is on the table. So it's 6.5 on DK, which is a better line, but the touchdown odds are not good. Next up, Falcons taking on the Raiders. It's 3.5 points, minus 120 on FanDuel, and it's over at 4 points on DK. So again, you have to pay the juice at minus 120, but you get the 3.5. This line is not going to move to 3. If it's already at minus 4 on DK, it's juiced at minus 120. It's not going to be moving back to 3. The news for the Raiders is that Aiden O'Connell apparently did not suffer a season-ending knee injury and that he may be playing on Monday. Now, there are some concerns because he was taken off the field in an air cast on a cart last week against the Bucs, but he apparently maybe have a chance to play. And if it's not him, it will be Desmond Ridder at the helm for the Raiders. Again, as I said, talking about the Bucs and the Chargers game, the Falcons should be winning this game. They should be able to cover 3.5 point spread. Granted, they are terrible against the spread this season. What are the Atlanta? They're 5-8 against the spread. But ultimately, if the Falcons are the team that we think they are, which is a good team but not a great team, they should be able to beat a lower team in the Raiders. And that means they should be able to cover 3.5 points. Now, will Kirk Cousins be seeing the whole game? Will he be throwing interceptions? I think both of those things are very likely. There are no props posted for at least either of these games I'm seeing on FanDuel. We, of course, next Monday on the Pro Football Today pregame show, we'll be covering both of these games, running through everything, whatever it might be. As of now, I think my favorite bets are going to be a Vikings defensive touchdown, a Caleb Williams interception. We, of course, build in plenty of correlation there. And then when it comes to the Falcons side of things, they got to get Drake London going on a consistent basis. We've seen Moody be good. We've seen Kyle Pitts do absolutely nothing. It has to be Drake London. And it has to be Drake London, their arguably best receiver or their best receiver, not their best offensive player. We can leave that to Bijan Robinson coming out of the backfield. But it should be a big game for Drake London. It should be a game for Kirk Cousins to settle things down, reel in the offense, stop throwing interceptions, get the ball to your best players, and move on from there. And hopefully they get some help with other teams losing along the way. Because again, they have beaten the Bucs twice this season, and they have the head-to-head tiebreaker, which is massive for the NFC South odds. So the NFC South title odds are also very much in the balance in these final few weeks, as you would assume, as it apparently is every single year. So that does it for Pro Football Today post-game show. Again, we saw the Rams win 12-6. There were no touchdowns scored by anyone. We did still see Kyron Williams hit overs on his props. He went for 108 yards. We saw Puka Nacua go for 97 receiving yards. He hit the overs on some of his props. Cooper Kupp did nothing. Decent game from George Kittle. We saw a pick from Brock Purdy to end things. Rams come away with the victory. Their season title hope, or their NFC West title hopes, are still alive. That does it for me, Tom Vecchio, on the Pro Football Today post-game show. Stay tuned for the rest of your football needs here on SportsGrid.
I'm actually not even on a side today.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that. Why are you on Texas?
I gave them a chance. Maybe not me as the overwhelming authority in college football.